The late 17th century witnessed the waning power of the Ottoman Empire in Europe. A long and slow decline, marked by bitter conflict. For decades, the Great Turkish War had raged across the plains of Hungary and the Balkans, a titanic struggle between the Habsburg-led Holy League and the Ottoman Porte. The year 1697 was a critical juncture in this protracted and bloody war. Sultan Mustafa II, a ruler determined to reverse the tide of Ottoman defeats, personally took command of his vast imperial army. He was a young and ambitious sovereign, eager to restore the glory of his ancestors and drive the Habsburgs from the lands they had reconquered. His objective was clear: to launch a major offensive, recapture lost territories in Hungary, and deal a decisive blow to the Holy League. The Ottoman army, a formidable host of over 80,000 warriors, began its slow and deliberate march northward from Belgrade. This massive force comprised elite janissaries, disciplined Sipahi cavalry, and a host of irregular troops drawn from across the vast empire. Their colorful banners and gleaming standards filled the horizon, a testament to the enduring military might of the Sultan. The air hummed with the sound of marching feet, the rumble of supply wagons, and the neighing of thousands of horses. Opposing them was the imperial army of the Holy Roman Empire, a multinational force under the supreme command of Emperor Leopold I. However, the true architect of the coming victory was a man whose name would become legendary in the annals of military history: Prince Eugene of Savoy-Darda. Eugene was a brilliant, audacious, and meticulously organized commander, recently appointed to lead the Habsburg forces in Hungary. He was a French prince who, having been denied a military commission in his own country, offered his sword to the Habsburg emperor. His genius for war was matched only by his relentless energy and his ability to inspire unwavering loyalty in his men. Eugene's army was smaller than the Sultan's, numbering around 50,000 soldiers. But it was a highly professional and well-disciplined force. It consisted of veteran infantry regiments from Austria, Germany, and Hungary, alongside powerful squadrons of heavy cuirassiers and mobile dragoons. These were hardened soldiers, accustomed to the rigors of campaign and confident in their leadership. The campaign season began with a series of complex maneuvers, a deadly game of chess played out across the Hungarian plains. Sultan Mustafa II initially moved to capture the fortress of Petrovaradin, a key strategic point on the Danube River. Prince Eugene, however, skillfully anticipated the Sultan's moves, shadowing the Ottoman army and frustrating its attempts to force a decisive engagement on unfavorable terms. The summer was hot and grueling, with both armies suffering from disease and the strain of constant marching. Scouts and cavalry patrols clashed in brief, violent skirmishes that flared up along the fringes of the main armies. The tension mounted with each passing week as the two immense forces circled each other like wary predators. In early September, Sultan Mustafa II made a fateful decision. Believing that Eugene's army was too cautious to risk a direct confrontation, he decided to cross the Tisa River near the small town of Zenta. His plan was to move his army into Transylvania for the winter, securing a new base of operations for the following year. This decision to cross a major river in the face of a nearby enemy was a grave tactical error, a violation of fundamental military principles. It presented Prince Eugene with the very opportunity he had been patiently waiting for. On the morning of September 11th, 1697, Habsburg cavalry scouts brought astonishing news to Prince Eugene. They had discovered the Ottoman army in the midst of its river crossing. The Sultan, confident and incautious, was ferrying his troops and supplies across the Tisa on a hastily constructed pontoon bridge. A significant portion of the Ottoman artillery and the Sultan himself had already crossed to the eastern bank. However, the bulk of the Ottoman infantry, along with the Grand Vizier, Elmas Mehmed Pasha, remained on the western bank, trapped within a fortified bridgehead. This bridgehead was a semicircular earthwork, hastily thrown up to protect the crossing, but it was now a potential death trap. Prince Eugene immediately recognized the golden opportunity that fate had presented him. He ordered his army to force march towards Zenta with all possible speed, determined to strike the enemy while they were at their most vulnerable. The imperial soldiers, sensing that a decisive moment was at hand, marched with grim determination, covering miles of dusty terrain in a matter of hours. As the afternoon sun began to dip towards the horizon, Eugene's army arrived at the heights overlooking the Ottoman position. The scene below was one of organized chaos. Thousands of Ottoman soldiers crowded into the confined space of the bridgehead, waiting their turn to cross the narrow bridge. Prince Eugene wasted no time in deploying his forces for a surprise attack. He arranged his army in a vast crescent, a sweeping arc of infantry and cavalry, designed to envelop the Ottoman bridgehead completely. The imperial artillery was positioned on the high ground, their cannons aimed down at the densely packed Ottoman ranks. The plan was simple but brutal: to pin the Ottomans against the river and annihilate them. Around 2 hours before sunset, the battle began with a deafening roar from the Habsburg cannons. Iron cannonballs plowed through the Ottoman formations, causing horrific casualties and sowing confusion. The Ottoman soldiers, caught completely by surprise, scrambled to form defensive lines within their cramped fortifications. Then, with drums beating and colors flying, the imperial infantry advanced. The left wing of Eugene's army, under the command of General Starhemberg, waded through the marshy ground near the riverbank to assault the Ottoman flank. Simultaneously, the imperial center and right wing surged forward, a tide of blue and white uniforms crashing against the Ottoman earthworks. Fighting was ferocious and desperate, a maelstrom of smoke, steel, and blood. The Janissaries, the Sultan's elite infantry, fought with their customary bravery, resisting the imperial assault with musket fire and flashing scimitars. They defended their positions with a courage born of centuries of martial pride. But they were trapped, with the wide Tisa River at their backs and a relentless enemy pressing in from all sides. Prince Eugene, ever the front-line commander, personally led his troops, riding along the lines and urging them forward. The imperial dragoons, fighting on foot, stormed the Ottoman trenches, engaging in brutal hand-to-hand combat. Bayonets clashed with yataghan blades in a desperate struggle for survival. The Ottoman command structure began to collapse under the relentless pressure. The Grand Vizier, Elmas Mehmed Pasha, was killed in the melee, a devastating blow to the morale of his troops. As dusk fell, the situation for the Ottomans became utterly hopeless. Panic began to spread through their ranks like wildfire. Soldiers abandoned their positions and made a frantic dash for the pontoon bridge, the only route to safety. The bridge, already strained by the weight of men and equipment, became a scene of unimaginable horror. It was a bottleneck of terror, as thousands of desperate men pushed and shoved to escape the slaughter. Imperial cannons targeted the bridge, their shots smashing into the packed mass of humanity. Soldiers were trampled underfoot, pushed into the churning waters of the Tisa, or cut down by the pursuing Habsburg infantry. Then, under the combined weight and the relentless cannonade, the pontoon bridge collapsed. Terrible cry went up from the Ottoman soldiers as their last hope of escape was swallowed by the river. The collapse of the bridge sealed the fate of the Ottoman army on the western bank. The battle turned into a one-sided massacre. With nowhere to run, thousands of Ottoman soldiers were cut down or surrendered. The waters of the Tisa ran red with blood. Sultan Mustafa II, watching the destruction of his army from the opposite bank, was powerless to intervene. He could only look on in horror as his elite forces were systematically annihilated. The pride of the Ottoman army was being destroyed before his very eyes. As darkness finally enveloped the battlefield, the sounds of fighting died down, replaced by the groans of the wounded and the cries of the dying. The victory for Prince Eugene and the Holy League was absolute and overwhelming. The Ottoman army had ceased to exist as an effective fighting force. An estimated 20,000 Ottoman soldiers were killed in the battle itself. Another 10,000 drowned in the Tisa River, their bodies washing ashore for days afterward. Habsburg losses, in stark contrast, were astonishingly light, numbering only a few hundred killed and wounded. The spoils of victory were immense. Eugene's army captured the entire Ottoman camp, including the royal treasury, which held millions of piastres. They seized 87 cannons, thousands of camels and horses, and vast quantities of supplies. Most symbolically, they captured the Ottoman Grand Vizier's seal of office and the Sultan's personal standard. The Battle of Zenta was a catastrophic defeat for the Ottoman Empire. It shattered the Sultan's ambitions and broke the back of the Ottoman military machine in the region. The news of the disaster sent shockwaves through Istanbul, leading to political turmoil and despair. The Habsburgs' Zenta was a triumph that secured their dominance in Central Europe. The victory paved the way for the Treaty of Karlowitz, signed 2 years later in 1699. This treaty formally ended the Great Turkish War and forced the Ottomans to cede vast territories. Hungary, Transylvania, and Slavonia were all transferred to Habsburg rule, fundamentally redrawing the political landscape of the continent. The battle cemented Prince Eugene of Savoy's reputation as one of the greatest military commanders of his age. His daring, his tactical brilliance, and his ability to seize a fleeting opportunity became the stuff of legend. Zenta was the first in a series of spectacular victories that would define his illustrious career. The battlefield fell silent, littered with the grim aftermath of the day's violence. Abandoned Ottoman tents stood like ghostly sentinels in the twilight. The ground was a carpet of discarded weapons, shattered equipment, and the bodies of the fallen. Habsburg soldiers, weary but triumphant, moved through the captured camp, securing the vast quantities of loot. Flickering torchlight cast long, dancing shadows across the scene of carnage. The scale of the Ottoman losses was difficult to comprehend even for the victors. Entire regiments had been wiped out, their colorful banners lying trampled in the mud. The river continued its impassive flow, carrying the silent dead towards the Black Sea. On the far bank, the remnants of the Ottoman cavalry and the Sultan's entourage hastily retreated into the darkness. Their flight was a stark admission of their complete and utter defeat. The psychological impact of the defeat on the Ottoman psyche was profound and long-lasting. Never again would an Ottoman Sultan personally lead his army into battle against a major European power. The myth of Ottoman invincibility, already tarnished, was now irrevocably shattered. Prince Eugene's strategy at Zenta would be studied by military theorists for centuries to come. His use of a rapid march to achieve surprise was a masterclass in operational art. His decision to attack late in the day, a risky move, paid off spectacularly. The envelopment of the Ottoman bridgehead was a textbook example of tactical encirclement. The battle demonstrated the superiority of disciplined, professional European armies over the more traditional Ottoman forces. The Janissaries, once the most feared infantry in the world, had been decisively beaten. The victory at Zenta marked a fundamental shift in the balance of power between East and West. It signaled the beginning of a long period of Ottoman decline and Habsburg ascendancy. The captured Ottoman standards were sent back to Vienna, where they were displayed as trophies of a glorious victory. The city celebrated with days of feasting and Thanksgiving services. Emperor Leopold I showered Prince Eugene with honors and rewards, recognizing him as the savior of his Hungarian domains. The name Zenta became synonymous with a decisive and overwhelming military triumph. The memory of the battle would echo through the corridors of power in both Vienna and Istanbul for generations. It was a brutal and bloody affair, a stark reminder of the human cost of war. But for the Habsburg Empire, it was a necessary and glorious victory that secured its future. The sun set on a day of momentous change on the banks of the Tisa River. A new era had dawned in the long and complex relationship between Europe and the Ottoman Empire. The echoes of the cannons at Zenta would reverberate through history. The Ottoman dream of further European conquest had been drowned in the waters of the Tisa. Prince Eugene's army had not just won a battle, they had altered the course of a continent. The soldiers of the Holy League rested on their arms, masters of a field of victory. The captured treasure would help fund the Habsburg war effort for years to come. The loss of so many veteran soldiers was a blow from which the Ottoman army would not easily recover. The political fallout in the Ottoman court was immediate and severe. Sultan Mustafa II's authority was severely weakened by the disaster. He returned to his capital not as a conqueror, but as a defeated and humbled ruler. The Grand Vizier's death left a power vacuum that further destabilized the government. Meanwhile, Prince Eugene's star was in brilliant ascendancy. He had proven his worth beyond all doubt, silencing his critics and earning the adoration of his soldiers. His innovative tactics combined speed, surprise, and overwhelming force. He understood the importance of logistics and intelligence in modern warfare. His army was a reflection of his own professionalism and attention to detail. The Hungarian nobility, many of whom had been ambivalent towards Habsburg rule, were now more firmly aligned with Vienna. The threat of Ottoman reconquest had been effectively eliminated. The border between the two empires would begin to solidify, a new line drawn by the sword. The battle was a testament to the changing nature of warfare at the turn of the 18th century. Artillery played a crucial role, both in the initial bombardment and in the destruction of the bridge. The coordination of infantry and cavalry was executed with near-perfect precision. The victory was a product of superior leadership, training, and doctrine. The Ottoman forces, while brave, were hampered by a rigid and outdated command structure. Their failure to properly scout the enemy's movements was a critical intelligence failure. The decision to cross the river was a strategic blunder of the highest order. The aftermath of the battle was a scene of grim and methodical work. Captured equipment was catalogued and sorted, a vast inventory of war material. The wounded were transported to field hospitals, their chances of survival slim in that era. The story of Zenta became a cautionary tale about the dangers of overconfidence in warfare. It also became a story of heroic achievement, celebrated in song and print across the Habsburg lands. Prince Eugene's fame spread throughout Europe, making him one of the most sought-after commanders of his time. He would go on to fight alongside the Duke of Marlborough in the War of the Spanish Succession, achieving further glory. But Zenta remained his signature victory, a masterpiece of tactical genius. It was a battle that not only defined a career, but also shaped the destiny of an empire. The Ottoman threat to Central Europe, a fear that had haunted the continent for centuries, was finally neutralized. The Habsburgs could now turn their attention to other fronts, their eastern flank secure. The victory was a powerful symbol of the rising power of the West. The technological and organizational advantages of the European armies were now undeniable. The long retreat of the Ottoman Empire from its European territories had begun in earnest. The fields around Zenta, once a scene of epic conflict, would eventually return to peaceful agriculture. But the memory of the great battle would linger, a permanent scar on the landscape of history. The river Tisa, which had been a grave for so many, would continue its timeless journey, a silent witness to the rise and fall of empires.